presentation today. I'll be walking through some of the materials related to the solicitation, and then we'll open the floor for Q&A. So let me begin by setting the ground rules for the meeting. Of course, mute your mic throughout the presentation. If you do have questions as we're going along, I'll break at different points to allow you to ask live questions. But if you want to type your questions into the chat, that would be great. If at the end with the live Q&A, we'll ask you to raise your hand using the reactions, and then you can unmute and ask your question live. So again, in the agenda, we will talk about what the UPWP is for those just more of as a reminder. We'll talk about all of the solicitation guidelines and review those, what the project application looks like, and again, we'll open the floor to any questions. So hopefully everybody knows who we are, but just super briefly, the Capital District Transportation Committee is the metropolitan planning organization for the 4 counties of Albany, Rensselaer, Saratoga, and Schenectady, except for the town of Monroe and the village of South Glens Falls. We program federal transportation dollars for planning activities related to transportation in the region. And we also program federal transportation dollars for capital projects through our transportation improvement program. We are a body comprised of elected officials. That is our policy board. That is the CDTC. Who have the ultimate decision-making authority on all things related to CDTC. Our membership includes the 4 counties, all 8 cities, the CDTA, New York State Department of Transportation, Regional Capital Regional Planning Commission, Airport Authority, the Port Authority, the Thruway Authority, and some advisory members, including the Federal Highway Administration and local towns and villages, including the town of Colonnade. So the key functions, of course, of an MPO is we develop a long-range transportation plan that establishes our long-term vision for the region and establishes investment principles and policies that guide all of our decision-making. As I said, we also do a transportation improvement program, which is our 5-year capital program of projects. That's a separate solicitation that's going on right now. And the third piece is the Unified Planning Work Program. And the UPWP is our 2-year plan that contains all of the MPO planning activities and tasked budgets related to planning work in our region that is federally funded through the Federal Highway Administration and through the Federal Transit Administration. And that's really what we're here to talk about today. This is sort of a new opportunity for how we're going to be constructing our Unified Planning Work Program for CDTC. And we look forward to talking with you more today about your ideas and any questions you may have about it. What the Unified Planning Work Program actually includes is a list of planning work and product descriptions that each planning task is to deliver. We also identify who performs that work, whether it be CDTC staff-led, whether it be consultant-led or led by others, like CDRPC, for example. There's timeframes. So how long is a planning task intended to be? Is it a short term? Is it ongoing? Is it 6 months, a year? What the cost is of that work and what are the fund sources? So not only do we have our FTA and FHWA PL funds, but we have a few other fund sources that we utilize for our work plan as well. And this is all designed to meet federal requirements. But it really helps guide our planning work activities. In the past, we have built a UPWP for a 2-year period. What's new for this year is we're going to build it as a 1-year UPWP to allow us to be more flexible and responsive to not only the needs in the region, but to any changes in federal or state policy that may arise in the coming months. So Some of the solicitation materials are available on our website. The URL for the UPWP webpage is on your screen, cdtcmpo.org/2022 UPWP. On that page, you'll find all of the solicitation materials and a link to the application. And I'll be reviewing all of these materials today. So I'm going to leave this PowerPoint and bring up the solicitation materials. As I said earlier, we're sharing the correct screen. So as I said earlier, this will be a new way of developing the UPWP for CDTC. In the past, the UPWP has largely been developed by staff, with some minor reach out to communities for certain types of programs, like our linkage planning program, for example. And that staff developed work plan has been provided to our planning committee and our policy board for approval, with very little opportunity for input in the development of the program. So what's new for this year, and what we're trying to do, is get more engagement on the development of the work plan and making sure that our planning resources are going to the areas of greatest need. We do have a number of federally required components of our work as a staff that we need to consider as part of this UPWP, but we have a lot of flexibility with the remaining funding that's available. The time period for our UPWP runs from April 1st of 2022, in this case, to March 31st of 2023. So the 2022 to 2023 timeframe. It's going to take us a few months to develop the UPWP. That's why we're starting this process now. We have, as a key principle of the Unified Planning Work Program development, that our goal is to advance the principles of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, New Visions 2050. So the priorities that we established in New Visions are really a key to the types of work that we are considering eligible for funding for planning projects in this Unified Planning Work Program. In terms of who's eligible to apply, all of our local government partners, counties, city, towns, villages, are certainly eligible. Our member organizations, including CDTA, are eligible to apply. And we also are allowing not-for-profits or other local groups to apply if they have the support of the municipality in which the project idea is going to be undertaken, the planning initiative. So we have multiple ways for folks to make proposals. I'm going to come back to this timeline in a future slide. But in terms of what is eligible, as I said at the beginning, we will be focusing on our regional transportation plan or metropolitan transportation plan priorities related to infrastructure, travel, reliability and operations, safety, the resiliency of our transportation system, complete streets and bike ped planning activities, transit and mobility planning, transportation demand management initiatives, freight planning, EV, electric vehicle planning, all fuels and environmental stewardship, and then transportation related technologies and the planning for the future of that. Along with those priorities, we are encouraging municipalities to think about how we can create more regional initiatives. So some priority will be given to proposals for planning at work that span more than one community or two or more communities in this case. And we are also prioritizing innovative planning concepts, things for which the results or the outcome of the planning study or an initiative might actually be transferred or beneficial to others, which would allow us to reduce the need for similar UPWP planning activities in the future. Applicants may submit proposals that supplement or complement but not duplicate previous work in UPWP unless it's updating something that's more than 10 years old, as is the case with the linkage program. And the three broad program categories for which we are asking for proposals are our Community and Transportation Linkage Planning Program, our Regional Plan Implementation projects, and Technical Assistance projects. So for the linkage program, we have reserved $200,000 for next year for consultant-led planning work. We are going to still utilize our traditional linkage program planning strategies, which are available on our website in Appendix A related to this solicitation guidance. And all of those traditional project eligibility and program requirements are still a part of that. So we're going to continue support for the linkage program, and we certainly want to see applications that both arise from new partnerships and communities that we haven't worked with on linkage program work, planning work before, but are also moving to update and refresh some of the planning work that has been completed or has again, is more than 10 years old. The second broad category is regional plan implementation related projects. So we have done here at CDTC a number of regional transportation plans. We have a capital district trails plan. We have a coordinated public transit human services plan, a regional freight plan, a local road safety action plan, among others. The URL will bring you to those planning products, so you can see the range of planning work that's been done in the various subject areas. But what this category of projects we're seeking proposals for are going to be implementing some of the ideas contained in these regional plans. Some examples include, but are not limited to, the items listed here on your screen. It could be a regional trail initiative, a resiliency plan in your community or multiple communities, could be a regional safety assessment. There's a whole range of things that qualify for the regional category. The application asks you to identify what plan your proposal is coming from. And we are only going to be funding, in the case, and I'll use the Capital District Trails Plan as an example. If we were to get 5 applications for regional trail plans, large-scale regional trails plan, we're only going to fund 1 in that functional area. Because remember, this is a 1-year work plan, and we want to ensure that we're making progress on the broad range of planning initiatives that we have supported here at CDTC. So I wanted to keep that in mind in terms of the context of how we would be awarding funding in this regional plan category. The third project area is our community planning and technical assistance project area, which is short-term and short duration community-based technical assistance projects. They may be very limited in scope in terms of data collection. It might be a brief analysis of a corridor in terms of its safety. It could be community design assessment. There's a number of eligible activities that are in the guidance document in Appendix B, any of which might be some short-term, short duration activity that your community might need some short-term support on that our staff can do here internally. It doesn't require consultant assistance. So those are the 3 broad categories. As always with our planning funds, there are some topics that are not eligible for planning funds: right-of-way acquisition, design and construction activities, operations of the transportation system, surveying. Anything that gets more into the construction side are the types of things that are not eligible for planning funds in the UPWP. In terms of local match, the UPWP, again, as I said at the beginning, is funded with Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration planning funds. We have set some thresholds for a maximum federal request for funding for each project type. And we have adjusted our local match requirements for accessing these planning funds, which is a little different than what we've done in the past. So for the linkage program, we've increased the maximum consultant total to $100,000 with a 10%, either a 10% local cash match or 10% in-kind services match. If you choose to do cash, that helps leverage our federal transportation dollars a little bit so that we can stretch them to use on other planning activities. And cash is preferred for the linkage program, but it's not a requirement. And that's a bit of a change than what we've had in the past. For the regional plans, we set a maximum request of $150,000, again with a 10% in-kind services or a cash match, whichever the community can submit is fine with us. And then the third, for the Community Planning and Technical Assistance Program, we have a $30,000 cap on those projects with an additional 10% in-kind services match. So the in-kind services match for all three project categories, we are hoping will expand the reach of this opportunity to communities that might not have had access to it in our planning funds before because they couldn't reach a 25% cash match, which has been sort of our typical cash match requirement on planning funds in the past. With respect to public participation, for any of our consultant-led initiatives, we are going to require that our CDTC public participation plan be utilized in developing the scope of work for the public involvement component. Only projects that are of a technical nature in the community technical assistance program likely will not need a public participation component. So keep that in mind as you're thinking through your project proposals. We are certainly sensitive to equity, and you will see in the project application some questions regarding equity and how you are going to be considering populations that are typically not engaged in the transportation planning process, and how you intend to reach out to those communities and make sure that they do become part of the process. In terms of the selection process and how we're going to be evaluating these projects, we're going to be evaluating them by category. So CDTC staff will be evaluating them by category. We expect you to submit a good faith budget estimate. We understand that at this stage of the game, it might be hard to come up with, a solid budget. These are not engineering projects where you have an engineering estimate coming from a consultant. So these are going to be based off of our previous planning work and our regional experience with planning work. And we can assist you with developing a fair budget if you have questions about that. The evaluation criteria are listed in the solicitation guidance, and you will see that these criteria are directly related to the project application, which I will be going through in a minute. In terms of the application itself, we're going to be requiring sponsors to submit the application via JOT form. As we heard with the TIP, the Transportation Improvement Program, we'll post a PDF of the questions so that you can think about them in advance before you actually type into the JOT form your material. And along with the JOT form, we will require a brief cover letter that includes the commitment to your local match signed by your lead elected official or chief executive, depending on the context of the application. If applicable, we'd love to see a location map for your project. And if there's any partners that you are going to be involving in your proposal, we'd like to see a letter of commitment indicating their involvement as well. We don't necessarily need letters of support indicating endorsement of the project. We just want to see who the project partners are and that those project partners are committed, particularly if they're offering any sort of matching support for the application. As I said in the guidance documents, this meeting today satisfies your requirement to participate in the virtual meeting or a private meeting with CDTC staff on your project idea. The applications are going to be due on Wednesday, November 24th at 5 p.m. And we'll notify you of the award, and I'll go through the schedule. But our CDTC Planning Committee in February will be making a recommendation for inclusion for our Unified Planning Work Program for adoption by our policy board in March. So we'll let you folks know in the month of February if you know the projects have made the cut to be included in the Unified Planning Work Program. The guidance document goes through, again, the linkage program material as well as some technical assistance material. But before I jump into the application itself, I wanted to stop here and see if there were any questions from the audience. So feel free to raise your hand or type your question into the chat. I'm seeing no questions. Okay, we do have a question. Can you apply for more than one grant? Yes, you can apply for more than one activity. It just increases the competition, as you could imagine, for the funding. Second question is green technology expected? I'm not sure if you mean by green technology whether or not each proposal is expected to have a sustainability component. It's certainly encouraged. If that's not quite getting at your question, feel free to elaborate some more. Another question, if we are currently working on a technical study which is not completed, can we apply at this point for a linkage program study? Yes, you can. You can jump ahead to applying, because obviously with the time lag between the time you apply and the time we actually begin the next UPWP, a technical assistance project would have been completed. Next question is, if the application is a project with 2 towns partnering, is that a regional or a linkage grant? The partnership is great for both program options. The distinction between the 2 program options is really coming down to the context of the proposal. So if the proposal is attempting to implement one of the ideas in, say, the Capital District Trails Plan, it would go into the regional plan category. If it's more of a by community sub-area study of a corridor or a section of both communities, it would likely fit into the linkage program category. If you have additional questions on that, we'd be happy to talk with you. Is this the only chance for technical assistance? No, this is not the only chance. The technical assistance program that CDTC partners with CDRPC on will remain in place to draw upon throughout the year. So this is not the only opportunity for technical assistance. For the linkage program, is the $200,000 the total amount available for all the applicants? Yes, it is the total available as of now. If we see there's a huge demand, we may adjust that, but that was the target that we set to ensure that we dedicate some resources to linkage program work to continue the good work that that program has done over the years. Okay, good questions. Are there any other questions at this point? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to pull up the project application so you can see what that looks like, and I'll walk you through that very briefly. Whoops, I'm sorry, that kind of jumped quickly. Let me see if I can enlarge this a little bit. There we go. So this is the planning project proposal form. Obviously, there's some introductory material. The deadline again is November 24th at 5 o'clock. There's links here back to the solicitation guidance should you need it for reference. You can call or email us with any questions at any time. The first section is really just the basics of sponsor contact information, who the primary sponsor is and the contact person. Part 2 is the basic project information. So we'd like to see the name of your project. Again, if a study area map is available and appropriate for your request, we'd like to see that as well. That is not required. We have a selection here for what is the proposed project type. And again, at this stage of the game, this is your best guess. We will circle back with you if we think that it fits better in a different category, but feel free to select the option that you feel is your proposal is best suited for based on where the information you have at this point. We also ask that you list any communities, agencies, or other public agencies that might be affected by the project. So a specific example of what we mean by that is if you are doing a sub-area study, let's just say of the Wolf Road area in the town of Colony, and you are the town of Colony who is the applicant, we'd like to know that because Wolf Road is owned and maintained by NISDOT, that is a road that you're interested in studying as part of this. So that is what we mean by list any other entities that might be affected by the project. If CDTA has a bus route in your study area, that would be another example of an entity that might be affected by the project. We asked for a brief summary. We're going to limit this summary to 100 words. So this is really just cut to the chase on what you're trying to do with your planning proposal. We asked for what the purpose and need is for the project and its relationship to transportation. We want to make sure that everything that we fund through our work program has some relationship to the transportation system. So this gives you that opportunity to articulate that. We talked about and continue to talk about our New Visions Metropolitan Transportation Plan and how we have those 15 planning and investment principles. And we were asking for you to select how many planning and investment principles you believe the proposed project might advance. So this is a checkbox of all of the different options. Your proposal might touch upon all of these, a subset of these, or maybe just one or two of these. So we're just trying to get a sense of the scope of the project and how it relates back to our New Visions plan. This next question is really the more detailed opportunity to explain how the project advances the planning and investment principles that you checked in the first question above. So it allows you to expand on how the relationship to your planning proposal and our planning and investment principles is related in the project. Our New Visions plan also includes some big ticket initiatives that are listed in the application. We have more descriptive information available about these in our quality region paper, but this question relates to whether or not your planning proposal is related to moving any one of those big ticket ideas forward. So a popular one that people like to talk about is the 787 area. Let's say we get a proposal for a regional study to look at 787. That is a project that is related to what's called the Riverfront Access and Urban Development Program. And that's the kind of item that would advance that big ticket initiative. So this is just another opportunity for folks to relate their planning proposals to some of our regional priorities as an MPO. We also asked you to list any additional CDTC regional plans, like the Capital District Trails Plan, for example, any state plans, maybe it's a statewide freight plan or some other state-led plans, your community's comprehensive plan, or any other regional or local plan that your planning project might be trying to advance. We know that there's a wide range of planning work that's being done in the region that is not necessarily transportation specific, but has a transportation relationship. So we'd like to know in response to this question, what those plans are. And if it's specifically related to any of the CDTC plans, it's helpful to know which CDTC plan you're referencing. even though you may not be applying for linkage program funding, we do ask you to think about the linkage program strategies in your proposal, and select here any of these that your planning effort might be related to. If it's none of those, there is an option for none, because we recognize not all of the projects might be directly related to these linkage planning strategies. But this will help us in certainly when we were evaluating the linkage projects in terms of how they're advancing these principles and strategies. Another question that we're asking is, are there any emerging issues or opportunities that could be addressed with the project, such as climate and electric vehicles, connected and automated vehicles, relationships to shifting demographic trends, curb management programs or projects, the evolution of Vision Zero or safe systems in your community? You know, if there's any innovative emerging issue or topic that your planning project is attempting to address, this would be the spot to describe that for us. And then here, describe any additional issues that the project intends to evaluate or address that's not already mentioned. You know, there could be a wide range of items that you could submit here. And then we ask you to provide sort of a broad sense of tasks that you would like to see completed as part of the proposed project. So this might include things like, I want to have a map prepared if it's a technical assistance project, or I expect there to be a sub-area study of a part of my community with a planning document, public involvement process. So, you know, identify those sort of items that you anticipate needing to support the planning proposal. As I said earlier, not every proposal is going to need public participation, but, you know, anything that would be of a likely consultant-led effort or beyond sort of a basic technical analysis likely will need public participation. So we ask you to describe that here. If your project is a technical proposal for small scale community planning assistance, you can simply insert none here, or not expected. As I said earlier, as part of the evaluation process, we're taking equity very seriously, and we want to make sure that we fund planning initiatives in areas not only that, you know, we fund planning projects equitably throughout the region. So we've included a link here to our environmental justice document, which includes some maps showing the environmental justice communities that as CDTC sees them. And we ask that your proposal describes these communities of concern, whether they're persons of color, people with disabilities, all of those communities of concern, and how the project will consider them in the planning process. And this is, again, an attempt to figure out and understand how we're going to reach out to these particular populations that are often not included in the planning process. And what is the desired outcome or product of the project? Are you, like I said, expecting a report, a technical memo, a map? You know, the tasks would tell us what you think is your best guess for how you'd want to achieve the project. And this would be, what is your expected product? And to encourage you as the planning implementer, since we can't implement the plans for you, but, you know, we'd like a sense from you at this stage of your intention on either adopting the resulting plan, or maybe thinking about incorporating the recommendations into your local policies. Maybe the end result of this project is you need a feasibility study toward a capital project. Maybe you need a tweak of your zoning code. Maybe you need some resources for some other activities. You know, but describe how the project results will ultimately be used by the sponsor. And as I said at the beginning, you know, are there other communities, public agencies, or nonprofit groups planning on supporting your project that you're partnering with, particularly those that might provide in-kind services or matching funds? You can list them and you can provide the commitment letters for those folks below your response to the question above. And in this area is the total project budget. And this is where you would provide us with the federal funds that you're requesting. And again, this is your best guess, and we're happy to try to assist you with fleshing this out a little bit further if you're not sure. If you're providing the 10% in kind match, you would insert that here. If you're providing 10% in kind cash match, you would insert that here. You can also mix and match. You can provide a 5% cash match with a 5% in kind match, depending on what resources are available in your community. And then you would sum A, B, and C. Again, recognizing that the sum of B and C has to be 10%. At minimum. You can overmatch as well. So if you have additional matching resources for your project, you can submit a higher percentage for matching funds. And we ask you to document what the source of that match is. So is it coming from your municipal budget? Is it coming from staff support? Is it coming from volunteers? What are the sources of those matching resources? And then describe the forms of in-kind support in addition to meeting attendance that if you're going to use in-kind to support your project, we obviously require the in-kind services to be documented. So perhaps that might be data collection. Maybe the local volunteer group goes out and collects the location of sidewalks in your community, location of other data on the ground. Maybe you are doing some small scale analysis, or maybe you're doing some research on the planning effort in your community. But you do have to document what tasks you'll undertake to provide us with that in-kind support. And this question gets to the schedule. So how long do you anticipate this project will take to complete? You know, obviously, if it's something that's consultant led, we can assume it's going to be likely a year at minimum. If it is something that can be done by CDTC staff, we'd like to know, is it something that's urgent? It might need to be done, say, in the first 3 months, beginning after following April 1st, or if it's something that can wait a little bit and be done in the second part of our work plan year. But give us some indication in terms of the urgency and how long you think the project might take. A typical technical assistance project has been taking us on average 3 to 4 months to complete. And as I said, consultant work minimally would be about a year. This question just asks if there's anything else that we should be aware of related to your planning project proposal that you didn't already mention. And the final thing is to provide that cover letter with the commitment to the local match requirement as signed by your lead a local elected official or the chief executive of the community. And that is a quick run through of the application itself. We can open it up to additional questions now. I see there's a few more in the chat, so I will start there.
Sandy, there was a question about communities of concern as you were mentioning that. So I had just replied quickly because, you know, we moved by it that we use the federal criteria, but that if a project includes senior populations, they should note that, because depending upon the context of the study, that may be important in the evaluation.
Yes, definitely. Thanks for that, Jen. Are there any other questions from the group? Feel free, you can ask live or put your questions into the chat. Just give it another minute here in case someone is typing. Okay. I'm not seeing any questions, so I hope that means we're trying to be as straightforward and keep this as simple as possible. I'm going to just share my screen one last time to review the schedule. So our plan here is, sorry about that. The proposal deadline again is November 24th. In the month of December, our staff will be reviewing the proposals and preparing recommendations for our planning committee. We'll likely be circling back to sponsors to clarify your proposals and get follow-up information as we see what is proposed. In the month of January, we'll be making recommendations and sharing them to our planning committee for approval. In the February Planning Committee meeting, we will have a full draft UPWP for their approval in order to move to a 30-day public comment period, after which the policy board would approve a final UPWP in its March meeting. Unfortunately, I don't have specific dates for the January, February, March meetings yet because of our transportation improvement program may be altering some of those schedules. So we'll try to communicate as best we can with any applicants so that you know the dates of these meetings in case you are interested in listening into the conversations related to these projects. So if there are no other additional questions, and I forgot to change this email address, so I apologize. I will put my email address here. We're going to use the CDTC at cdtcmpo.org. If you want to email us any questions, you can also call our office at the number 518-458-2161. If you'd like to set up a meeting with us to talk about your idea, we're happy to sit down with you and answer any additional questions you have that might be specific to your proposal. And with that, if there's no other questions, we can close this session. Thank you very much for participating today. This recording will be available on our website. And if you have any additional questions, let us know. Thank you. We're looking forward to seeing your proposals and have a great weekend, everybody. Have a good day.